Welcome back, everybody. It's time to start digging into the avionics here. So Midwest Panels put the systems together here for me, and or at least build the harnesses and got all the mounts and everything like that together. Um, it's actually not too bad. They basically all their parts have labels on it where parts need to go, and so it's just a matter of looking at the avionics part, matching it up with the part that needs to go to, and then using the supplied screws to actually mount the parts to it. So this is a modular piece, and I suspect it's got a little bit to do with ventilation just as much as placement. So there's basically a spot you put it on there, and the nice part is that the mounting bracket has the necessary holes to put the screws through, as well as the screwdriver, so things line up. um, it's basically, if you look at the right hand side there, you've got the GAD 27, the GA 24, and whatnot. So I just kind of slowly worked through that part, getting the avionics mounted. And because if you remember from the last video, I finished riveting the 90-degree bench together there, and just slowly worked my way through that process. It got oh, and this is one thing that definitely, if you're, I'm gonna. This is going to be kind of a longer video just from an avionics perspective, because I really didn't find a good video out there on how this goes together. When you put the batteries in, at least the way that Midwest has this designed, is you don't put it in so that you read the lettering or the label, so you can see it says backup on that battery. It needs to go the other way, because there's a DB connector that is on the now currently right hand side of the battery, and the wiring harness actually is meant to plug in with on the right hand side. And it makes sense after you do it, because there's the support bracket there to the right hand side that would interfere with the DB connector. So we found that out a little bit later, or at least once we started doing the wiring. So it was just a matter of going through and filling it up. I did run into one little problem on it was the GES there on the right hand side. They've got it labeled on the top shelf and the bottom shelf. The unfortunate part was I installed the top one, and then went to go install the lower one and started looking for the part, and didn't realize that I'd already installed it. So I'd come back, and the GEA 24, I had to take this plate off so that I could mount and if you see, it says GA 24 underneath there. So it was a little confusing. It was embarrassing, because I emailed them and said, hey, I'm missing this part, and they're like, send me a picture, and send them the picture, and they literally were like, you've got it installed. So it was kind of confusing, but I got that's the Cirrus Cirrus XM receiver there, and you had to take that top plate off in order to get that to fit, because the rib nuts actually cause interference, so it won't just slide straight in. But easy to fix. Just basically took the screws out and put it all back together. So the next thing is I needed to get some protection for the wiring. The thickness sheet that Midwest provides didn't quite line up with the piece that comes with the tabs there that came from Sling. It's not a showstopper, but it basically made it difficult to put the edge protector in. I was trying to wrap it around both pieces, and then there was that offset, so I wound up having to come back and clean that up. I'll show you that in here in a second. Both these guys are named Nick. They're builders also in the community here in Denver, and they stopped by to just look and see what I've got going on. They did the quick build, and they've got a nice space that they're doing it in. One of the Nicks owns a boat shop, and so they've got a huge amount of space that they can work in. But we're just looking at that cover plate there, how that goes together. And here's where I basically taken off that edge, and now I'm deburring that section there so that edge trim goes together well. Once I did that, this just went straight on. Didn't really have any problems after that, because I just couldn't get it to go through otherwise. a lot of, once I get the edge protector in place, what I've been doing is tacking it into place with a little bit of hot glue, and so that the end doesn't peel off from it for any way. Not all the fingers went through, and so I just used a little screwdriver to get the rest of the fingers down. And since I had the glue gun out, I was a little bit more liberal with the placement to make sure that that didn't peel off at all. I took a break from the avionics and was working on the hoses for the cooling lines. These are so rather than using the insulation that came with Sling, the Midwest builders, not the panel builders, but Henry, that's up north with in Michigan as well, had suggested these to use as well. So it was a different wrap, and it basically made the job a little bit easier. So Aaron Stampa came by. He's a Sling TSI owner and builder. He's completed his about a year and a half ago, and was helping with the avionics. I really was confused by the wiring harness because you know, do you put it in from the front or the bottom? And then there's this part here. Those are actually, they get cut off after you do the install because they're they're for the practice stand, and then they were labeled slightly different than what the diagram from Midwest Panel Builders was. So it was a little confusing to work through that. But like I was saying, I wasn't sure if the harness went in from the bottom or in from the top or from the front to the back. So it just wasn't real clear on the installation process. And actually wound up having two people working on this really helped, because it was better to have somebody pulling wires as well as feeding it through. I'm a big fan of really tight tolerances, and the wiring harness from Midwest is done very well. It's very solid. There's not a chance that I could even come close to matching the tightness of how everything was put together. But because of that, it does make moving things around a bit challenging, because it's very solid, or it's not very bendy, I guess. So this is actually our second attempt, because Aaron didn't remember which direction he had put his in either. So we partially put it together and then had to pull it out. And once you start terminating all the connections, you just slowly start eliminating each piece that goes together. Trying to think of what else. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I provided this so that any other builders that are out there just sort of saw the process that we went through. You know, we started picking a termination and screwing it in to the point where it was like, okay, this works, and then we'd go to the next one. And actually, I think we got a little ahead of ourselves. We were trying to run the bus bars down below and then come up from below to attach it to the front of the lower panel there. And that clearly wasn't going to work. There wasn't going to be enough cable to do that. So the tolerances were just not allowing for it. So we made the determination that it's like, okay, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to pull this back out and then run it down from the top. So, and there's a couple of extra wires. See, we were trying to pull it up from the bottom and decided, okay, this isn't going to work. So you got to reverse everything you do, which of course, because it's tight, I mean, it makes it a little challenging. But again, it's almost as a two-person job as part of the process here. Once we got it pulled back through, we were able to get the bus bars put into place. Because I have the VPX system, the bus that's in Aaron's lap right now would go on the right hand side, and then there's a lead that goes over to the VPX because it's directly below that panel there, and then the other bus bar is on the left hand side there. This was actually our final placement, so it worked out pretty well. There's another circuit breaker. Let's see if I've got it here. Yeah, we can't see it right now. It's just dangling down below. You'll see it here in a little bit because I did have to do a little bit of extra work. Again, super tight tolerances. There's not going to be any worry about things wiggling around or rubbing up against anything because of how tight things were. But we got those. Those are the. We're working on the adapters, getting those mounted in place. I do like the system. It makes it very easy to install once you kind of figure out where things going. But figuring out where it's going is the hardest part. So the plugs that Aaron had in his left hand there, they get routed back and around in underneath, so that the other connector, the female portion of the connector, comes down from above and then just connects, and then they stay together. And on the panel itself, there's another set of wiring that's where the connectors all go to. I talked to a gentleman the other day who's an RV14 builder, and he wired his whole panel. And knowing what I've done here, which is granted isn't much other than just running the wire, and how much wire there is, more power to the folks that want to wire their entire plane, because I would say that this would add several months to the process. So here we're back. We're just finalizing getting the bus bar put into place, and sort of weeding our way through it. This is the end result of the day. I know it looks like a bit of a mess, but believe it or not, it's actually, at this point in time, it's just a matter of sorting out which wire to go where. So Aaron finished up for the day. I came back around. I put the support bar back into place, and the part that is in my hand right there, it's another set of circuit breakers. It's not a breaker, but it's it's for some of the higher power stuff. One of the screws didn't quite line up well with the hole for mounting it, and it was being interfered with by the I'm going to call it a breaker. So I was like, okay, I'll take the breaker off and I'll get the screw put through. And as I was working on it, I noticed one of the wires had worked loose from its clip that it was in. So I had to do a little extra work to repair that, get it back into place. Then I did a double check to make sure that everything was secure, and it was. I think it was just, you know, one slip by. So you can see how challenging it is. I'm 6'2" and a little over 200 pounds. So if you have a small person that can fit in a hole that is fairly handy, I highly recommend see if you can find that type of person, because it's a very, very small space, and once you get down underneath there, it's very difficult to move around. So I'm just trying to minimize as many times as I have to go down there. So that's the part there that I was working on getting it attached, and you have to almost get underneath to be able to attach it, because it's so tight. It was tough to get the holes lined up, but yeah. So in order to get that screw to work, I actually had to take a little bit of the mounting material off. It didn't interfere with any of the wirings or anything like that, so I'm not worried about that part. I just needed enough room to be able to actually put the screw into place. And that's the position that I had to get into in order to be able to see where it goes. So from here, it's just a matter of figuring out, okay, well, these are the things that are left unplugged, and fortunately, the way the system works is it's one plug per device, so it's not like there's multiple plugs that are similar or the same, so you can't accidentally plug two things in, or the wrong thing into the wrong thing. So anyway, thanks for joining. I'll have another video probably next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Bye.